you're here today. Love that new song. It's new to us. We haven't sang it here, and it's so fitting for what we're talking about. And if you're here last week, we kicked off this series called Battle Ready, and kind of what we said was that, listen, everybody's in a battle. Whether you want to be or not, this is life, and we've got to be ready for the battle. And we talked about the armor of God, so I encourage you to go listen to that if you haven't heard it. But over the next few weeks, we're going to look at Old Testament battles, and we're going to talk about how we can take the tactics and the things that they did there and apply them to our lives. And what I love about all these battles is they're like epic movies. I mean, like each one of these could be a movie. It's so crazy. But what happens a lot of time is we kind of separate that from us. Like those were those guys back then with God, and somehow now we're separate. We got to start looking at it as, no, God still moves through us just the way he did with everyone else. And so we got to start having confidence in who we are, that he is our champion and he has given us the victory. And so we're going to be in Joshua chapter 10 today, and I love this story. And I want to just read all the text, and then we're going to go back and talk about what we can take from it. So it starts in Joshua chapter 10. A little bit of background before we jump in. This is the story of the Israelite nation going to take the land that has been promised to them. They wandered for a long time, and finally they're getting to go get this land that's been promised to God's people. And what God has said is that, hey, if you go through a city and they let you pass, fantastic, they're good to go. If they don't let you pass, we're gonna take care of them. We're gonna knock them out. We're gonna just annihilate them. Okay. And again, it was a different world back then. I know it's really, really brutal, but this was just the life that it was back then. And so they're on this journey. Joshua is now commanding. He took over from Moses. He's commanding the army, and they're making their way through to the promised land. And they've had some great battles already. The Battle of Ai, or Ai, whichever one you want to call it, has happened. And so people are really starting to hear about them and really starting to worry about this force that is the Israelite nation. So that kind of catches us up to Joshua chapter 10, starting in verse 3. I'm going to do my best to get these names right. So King Adonai-Zedek of Jerusalem sent messengers to several other kings: Hoham of Hebron, Piram of Jarmuth, Japhia of Lachish, and Debir of Eglon. Let's get a little round of applause. Thank you. Have no idea if that's right or not, but if you say it with confidence, just like, nobody knows if that's right or not. But he sends word to all these kings, and he says, "Come and help me destroy Gibeon," he urged them, "for they have made peace with Joshua and the people of Israel." So these 5 Amorite kings combined their armies for a united attack. They moved all their troops into place and attacked Gibeon. The men of Gibeon quickly sent messengers to Joshua at his camp in Gilgal. "Don't abandon your servants now," they pleaded. "Come at once, save us, help us, for all the Amorite kings who live in the hill country have joined forces to attack us." So Joshua and his entire army, including his best warriors, left Gilgal and set out for Gibeon. "Do not be afraid of them," the Lord said to Joshua. This is so important. "For I have given you victory over them. Not a single one of them will be able to stand up to you." So Joshua traveled all night from Gilgal and took the Amorite armies by surprise. The Lord threw them into a panic, and the Israelites slaughtered great numbers of them at Gibeon. Then the Israelites chased the enemy along the road to Beth Horon, killing them all the way to Azekah and Makkedah. As the Amorites retreated down the road from Beth Horon, the Lord destroyed them with a terrible hailstorm from the heaven that continued until they reached Azekah. The hail killed more of the enemy than the Israelites killed with the sword. On the day the Lord gave the Israelites victory over the Amorites, Joshua prayed to the Lord in front of all the people of Israel. He said, "Let the sun stand still over Gibeon and the moon over the valley of Ajalon." So the sun stood still and the moon stayed in place until the nation of Israel had defeated its enemies. Is this event not recorded in the book of Jashar? The sun stayed in the middle of the sky, and it did not set as on a normal day. There has never been a day like this one before or since, when the Lord answered such a prayer. Surely the Lord fought for Israel that day. Then Joshua and the entire Israelite army returned to their camp at Gilgal. Such an amazing moment, like just a cool story. The sun stays still for an entire day, just an insane thing. And again, sometimes we separate and say, well, that's a Bible story. Well, Joshua is just a human being like you and me, right? So let's not lose the fact that there's still truth in what happened for our lives today. There's still meaning for our lives. And so I want to look at kind of verse by verse at this and see how can we apply this right now in 2021 as a Christ follower to our lives. And I think that the first tactic and the first thing that we see is really the most important for this entire series. And that is, you have to believe in God's power. That's it. That was the tactic. That's what, at the end of the day, it all came down to the fact that Joshua had to believe that God is powerful, that God does provide the victory, and he's the one who can do it, not in my own power. And we have to believe the same thing. I have this board up here, and I'm not going to karate chop it. That would be really cool. But I want it to kind of represent our lives. And we're trying to go about our lives, trying to, screw these screws in. And when you don't know Jesus, you're kind of going through life with a hammer. And if you've ever tried to hammer a screw, like it doesn't work very good. And I hit that most of those times. So, and it's not even like a real hammer. It's like one of those $20 ones that's in the kit you get from Walmart, you know what I mean? Like that you have around your house for some reason. But this is what we try to use when we don't know Jesus. We're trying to live this life and take care of our problems, and we don't know what to do. And I'm not trying to make excuses for people, but maybe let's give them a little bit of a break. There's a reason they're angry and sad and hopeless. Because imagine walking through life just trying to and getting nowhere. There's no hope. When they are angry, when they're lashing out, it's because that's the life that they're living. But as Christ followers, we have a different kind of hope. We have a different kind of power. We have this right here, right? Little Tim the Toolman Taylor action going on. You know what I'm talking about? Right? We have all the knowledge of what the power is. But something's missing. And I feel like this is how a lot of Christ followers live their life. Like I have the power of how this all works, but for some reason, I'm like, hold up, I got this, God. I'll be with you in a second. Like, I know how this is supposed to work. It's no wonder people get frustrated and walk away from the church and wonder what. You have all the knowledge. How frustrating is that? You know who God is, you know how powerful He is, but you don't use Him in your life. You don't plug into the source. We have all the power we need right here. That's how we should be living. Then you go in and you're like, okay, I got something for you. Oh, wrong way. Hold up. That's on you. Let's go. We'll get another one just for fun. Let's go. That's how we should be living life. We have all the power in our hand, yet we're over there just like, I can't, let me see if I can do this, God. I don't know why everything's happening the way it's happening, right? And when it's like, no, let's go. 3 out of 4. Okay. That is the picture of how people live life. You have a choice to make because the battle's coming. We talked about that last week. You're going to face the battle. That's a given. The question is, do you believe in the power of God to overcome and give you the victory? That's the question. Because we've created American Christianity where there's like this middle line of sometimes He can and sometimes He can't. But that's not true. He's either all powerful all the time or He's not real. He's either all good in every circumstance or He's not real. There's not a middle ground with God. And we got to start living under the power of the victory that's in our lives. That's what Joshua believed. That's why he was able to accomplish what he's got. He didn't have some superhuman strength. He just had belief in a powerful God. So I want to go back and I want to look at this story with kind of that in mind. And maybe you need to decide, hey, where am I at today? Some of you, maybe you're here today and you've got the hammer and you have no hope in your life. And I'm here to tell you there is a power that brings hope. There's a power that sent their Son to die in your place for you so that you can have hope. Some of you, you're here today, and this is you. You got all the knowledge. You know the tools. You're just not using them. And you're spinning in life. And you're like, this should be easier because I'm a Christ follower. Or maybe you're here today and you're plugged in. The great thing about God is He doesn't have to recharge. Like this battery has to recharge at some point. He is unlimited in His power. And those people that are living that life are dangerous because they're world changers. And that's what we see with Joshua. So let's go back and look at this story. Starting in verse 3, we have all these kings here, and they are worried because of what they see in the Israelite nation do. And now here Gibeon has kind of buddied up with him. They've allied together. And so he brings all these kings together. And it says, so these 5 Amorite kings combine their armies for a united attack. How many of you feel like there's a united army attacking you? You got finances coming at you. You got your job coming at you. You got relationships that aren't working out. You've got health issues. You've got all these things coming at you, and there is an attack on you. Again, there's a world out there that are dealing with the same thing without having the power that you have. But there's people who walked in the door today, and the truth is, the attack's there. And you feel like you got 5 forces coming against you. There's kings all over the place that are attacking you. What are you going to do with that? That's where Joshua was at. I mean, here we have these 5 kings coming together. That's got to be scary to have these big nations coming together. And the story shifts just a little bit here, and I think this is really important. I don't have a lot of time to spend with this, but it shifts to Gibeon. Now, when you get a chance today, go back home, read Joshua chapter 9. The Gibeonites had made a treaty, an alliance with the Israelites, but they didn't do it the right way. They lied and they cheated their way into it, and the Israelites were kind of stuck with it. So Joshua and the Israelites are really mad at the Gibeonites, right? They're not happy with the way that this all worked out. But in chapter 6, they attack Gibeon because they've befriended him, and here's what it says. The men of Gibeon quickly sent messengers to Joshua at his camp in Gilgal. Don't abandon your servants now, they pleaded. Come at once, save us, help us, for the Amorite kings who live in the hill country have joined forces to attack us. So here's these Gibeonites, these swindlers. They are being attacked now, and what do? They call out to the Israelites, come help us. Now Joshua and the Israelites could have been like, you know what? You got yourself into this mess. You created this. You deal with it. And the truth is, we have a world that is coming to us saying, I'm under attack and I don't know what to do. If we are always so concerned with our battles and the attack that's coming on us, we can't help a world that is dying and hopeless. If all we're doing is constantly living this roller coaster life of sometimes God's good, sometimes he's not, sometimes he's powerful, sometimes he's not, how can we help those who don't know and come to us and say, hey, I need your help? Those who maybe don't even deserve our help. Those who don't look like us and think like us and act like us. They're coming, they're saying, we can't defend ourselves. We don't know what to do. And again, Joshua could have been like, hey, y'all got yourselves into this problem. Take care of it. But what does he do? In verse 7, it says, so Joshua and his entire army, including his best warriors, left Gilgal and set out for Gibeon. I think there's something for us to take in that. We got to give our best to the world. We got to fight as hard as we can for them. He didn't just send a few people to go appease them. He himself went and set out for the army. Again, listen. Yes, they're frustrated. Yes, they're angry. Yes, they take it out on churches and Christ followers, but they're just beating their head against the wall. They don't know. They don't have hope. And so we can get mad and we can push and we can reject and we can call them names and we can use the same tactics and get mad at them and, call them out on Facebook or whatever we want to do. But the truth is they need help. They're not going to cry out in the right way. But we have the hope. The Bible tells us that the treasure is in jars of clay. The treasure's been put inside of us. We're the ones who take it out to them. And so Joshua sends his people out. And then verse 8 happens, and I think this is the key to everything. It says, do not be afraid of them, the Lord said to Joshua, for I have given you victory over them. Not a single one of them will be able to stand up to you. And I want to reiterate a point that I made last week because I think that this is really what it all comes down to. We don't fight for victory. We fight from victory. We fight from a belief that God's power is bigger than anything we're ever going to face. That's where we fight from. We got to walk out the door knowing that when we walk out, the power of God is living inside of us. The same power that did what we're going to read right here in this Bible, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives inside of us as we walk out the doors. That's how you walk out in confidence. That's how you walk out expecting. That's how you walk out praying big prayers and believing big things to happen because we know who God is. And that's the key to this whole thing. I saw an interview with one of our American athletes. I love the Olympics, been watching that, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was one of our sprinters maybe. And they asked her, in your wildest dreams, did you expect this to happen? She won a gold medal. You know what she said? Yes. I trained so hard for this. I believed that I could. I knew that I had the ability. And some people are like, oh, that's arrogant. No, that's confidence in knowing who you are. That's confidence in the training. That's confidence in preparing and being ready for the battle and for the moment. And there's too many Christ followers who walk around like, oh, I can't be confident because then I'll look arrogant. No! You got to walk around with your head held high. Yes, I expect God to do something. Yes, I expect him to change that situation. Yes, I'm going to bring my marriage to him, expect him to renew it. Yes, I'm going to expect him to heal that disease. And listen, it's his timing and it's his call on how everything works, but I'm going to believe in his power. That's where life change happens, and it's time for Christ followers to stand up and walk in that. Now, I'm not talking name it and claim it stuff. You speak it into existence, and God has to make it happen. I get that people take this and go crazy with it, but I'm tired of ho-hum Christianity just walking around like the sky's falling down. You've been given the victory. The same thing he said to Joshua is true over our lives. We got to walk out the door expecting that. Let's go. People who live like that are different creatures, man. And they impact in different ways. They walk out the door expecting God to do something. And even in the worst moments, they expect God. It makes me think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These teenagers standing before a king that said, if you do not bow down to me, I'm going to throw you in a furnace. And their response is, so what? And I love what they say because they don't say, you know what, God will save us and he'll show you. They say he is more powerful, and even if he doesn't save us, we'll never bow down to you. That's the mentality. That's the power. And when you live like that, there's nobody who can do anything to you. Are you kidding me? When you're not even afraid of death because you know who your God is, it changes you. It changes how you do things. But, there's always a but. God's powers can't accomplish anything. But I think verse 9 is really important. It says, Joshua traveled all night from Gilgal and took the Amorite armies by surprise. Joshua did what? Joshua did what? How long? How long? But the battle had already been won. What's he having to do? Travel all night. We have a part to play in this. And sometimes we just need to get off our butts and go do it. The victory had already been declared, but he still had to get up and travel all night to get to the victory. Sometimes, bear with me, we can be like little kids. Now, I've got I got an almost teenager and a teenager, and if they want to go, spend the night with their friends or do whatever, we'll ask them, well, you got to have your room clean. Now, you would think me asking you to clean your own room and get your own stuff put up so that you can go have fun wouldn't be a big deal. Now, they're not in here, so I can be truthful. Last time they were in here, so they cry about that. It's like, you want me to pick up my stuff from my room and put it up into my spaces so that I can go have fun? And as much as kids do that, we do the same thing to God. Oh, I know I've already been given the victory, but you want me to stand up under this trial? Oh, but they're sick. Why is that happening? Oh, but my marriage, why is this happening? When the victory's already been declared. But you just need to get up and you need to walk. How long? All night if it takes. Because you know the victory's already won. Are you struggling in your marriage? Get up. Travel. Take whatever it takes. Stop everything you're doing and focus on that if it takes you all night long. Ooh, I'm a little bit on fire. I'm sorry. We just downgrade God to this little box. It makes me think of like he's this Aladdin genie and like he's in this little lamp, but when we need him, okay, come on out. No. Victory is yours. You just have to step into it, and we play a part in that. And sometimes it's his job to fight, and sometimes it's his job to let you fight. He lets them fight and take the Amorites, but then in verse 10 it says, then the Lord threw them into a panic. God's going to do what he can do, what only he can do. So they all take off, and they're running after him, and It says, as the Amorites retreated down the road from Beth Horon, the Lord destroyed them with a terrible hailstorm from heaven that continued until they reached Azekah. The hail killed more of the enemy than the Israelites killed with a sword. God's going to do what only he can do. He's going to come alongside you. He's not going to leave you. He knows where you're at. And some of us, man, we get in a situation and it's like, God, where are you? Well, sometimes he just wants you to fight because he knows you're going to come out better on the other side. You're going to come out tougher. He's going to let you go through that. You're going to lose a loved one. You're going to have some failed relationships. You're going to go through financial trouble. You're going to lose a job. This stuff's going to happen. And we want to say, God, where are you? He's right there. Sometimes he wants you to go through it so you'll be tougher than you ever thought you could be. I walked through a journey over the past few years, and to be honest with you, I woe is me did a lot. Why is this happening, God? I've tried to do all the right things. Woe is me. Where are you at in this? How is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. And if I could, man, if I could back to the future that thing, I would just go back and just slap myself. That's all I would do. I would just say, like, get up, and just slap myself and just run off. Leave myself very confused in the closet there crying. You know what I'm saying? Because I look back now and I'm like, why did I doubt? Why did I? Because he was preparing me for something bigger than I could even imagine. He was preparing me for something that I didn't even know was coming, something that I didn't even think I could do. I never planned on being a lead pastor. That's crazy. But I walked through stuff that I didn't want to walk through because he knew I needed to get to the place where I needed to be. And some of you right now, you're doubting God, you're doubting his power, you're doubting his faith because of what you're walking through. He's right there. He's going to fight. He's going to send the hailstorm when he needs to. But sometimes you just need to get the sword. You need to get up and you need to travel all night if it takes. Fight for what you believe in. We play a part in this. And that's what's so cool is God partners with us. He's like, no, I want to use you. You got gifts. You got abilities. Let's go take the world by storm. And then something really cool happens in verse 12. It's already a cool story, right? But then you throw this in here and it's like, holy cow. On the day the Lord gave the Israelites victory over the Amorites, Joshua prayed to the Lord in front of all the people of Israel. He said, let the sun stand still over Gibeon and the moon over the valley of Ajalon. How much did Joshua believe in God's power? He got up in front of the whole army and the whole Israelite nation and said, God, make the sun stand still. And it did. Now, it's God's choice whether or not he made that happen or not. But Joshua believed. He believed in that victory. He believed. And he said it in front of everyone. I got a question for you. What is your sun stand still prayer that you're not praying right now? What's the thing that you're not believing enough to ask for? Some of you need to pray, God, heal my marriage. But you're afraid because you don't know what that means, all the work that it's going to take to fix it or whatever. God, help me with this job situation. I don't want to be here. What is that prayer that you need to pray? God, reach this neighbor of mine, reach this coworker of mine, bring my kid back to church, whatever that thing is. Now, again, it's God's will and it's God's timing. We don't speak into how he does it. But we believe in the power of what he can do. And Joshua prayed that prayer. God, make the sun stand still. And for a day, that sun held its place right there. It was a great day to tan, I imagine. Sorry. My brain, this is the way my brain works. I'm like, that's a lot of sun. We've been, soaking up the sun this summer anyway. But what an amazing moment in history. And you got to stop thinking that somehow you're less than Joshua. That somehow God listens less to you than Joshua. I think we've created in American Christianity this idea that this one person on stage has the authority and all this stuff to do everything. And it's like, no. This is just my vocation. I get to do this for a living, and I'm so grateful for that. But I'm no different than any one of you. We all have the same power that provides everything for us. And if we're really going to be the church that God desires for us to be and make the changes that I really think we're going to make in this community, and I'm telling you this world, and I'm serious about that. That's my sun stand still prayer, that we're not just a building where people come in and feel good for an hour, that we seriously are a world-changing church. But if we're going to do that, it happens with each individual praying their sun stand still prayer, aligning with God and saying, hey, do this. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. And when that takes place, when you have a group of people who are confident in God's power, it's unending what he can do. That's the kind of church that I want to be a part of. And as it goes on there, and it says that, here it is. It stood still in the moment. I want to be a part of something like that. And I'm seeing that in this church. I'm seeing that in people in this church as they're starting to pray those big prayers and go chasing after those big lines. Man, I love it. Because why not? Why not? I don't want to just exist. This world kind of sucks, to be honest with you. Like, just at the end of the day, I just look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh. But that's how it happens when we're so focused on that and not focused on what God can do. Do you know how much opportunity we have right now as Christ followers because of all the chaos in the world? God, make the sun stand still. And it doesn't, I get that you're sitting there and you think that never through you could God do. No. I read this the other day. Extraordinary moves of God begin with ordinary acts of obedience. That's it. That's it. You have the power to do that. Make the big ask and trust that God has the power to do it. That's what I'm praying over your life. That's what I want for this church, man. And I'm telling you right now, he provides all the power we need. Again, we've got to trust his timing. We've got to trust what he chooses to do. But we've got to start walking around boldly, asking for the sun to stand still. That's my hope and that's my prayer. Father, thank you for this story. Thank you for the truth that we find in it. And I'm so thankful that this truth is not just for Joshua. It's not just for David or Moses or the disciples. It is the truth for every Christ follower. That the same power that made the sun stand still, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is what lives in us. It's what pulses through our veins. It's time as believers and Christ followers to start walking around with our heads held high, expecting things to happen. Expecting the Spirit to move and to lead us and to show us and guide us. And I'm praying for each and every person in here that they would pray bold prayers to a big God. But I know in this room too that there are some people that are like the Hammers. Man, they have no hope. They feel lost. Feel like they're just beating their head against the wall. And I pray that they would find their hope in Jesus. But I think there's a lot of people here who are like that drill with no battery. We have all the knowledge about who Jesus is and who God is, but for some reason we're trying to do this on our own power. And we're frustrated and we feel like we're spinning in circles. And I don't ask for a response a lot, but I do want to pray specifically for you today if that's you. And so with no one looking around, man, if that's you, if you just feel like that drill is just spinning with no power and you're like trying to figure out what's going on and a little bit frustrated, if that's you, just raise your hand. I just want to pray for you. Just slip up real quick. Okay. Hands everywhere. Listen, I've been there. I lived that. There's no condemnation there. I just want to encourage you to plug into that power, to believe in the power, to trust that power. So, Father, today we turn this over to you. We turn it over to you. You're the only one. Truth is, we live in a broken world. We're going to go through trials. We're going to go through pain. We're going to go through hurt. That's just part of it. The question is, what power will we use to get through it? What power will we use to overcome it? And when the power is the power that's already brought victory, we can achieve more than we ever thought possible. So help us to pray that the sun would stand still in our lives, whatever that looks like, and help us to trust in your power. In Jesus' name.